UMass, and that was her favorite pizza place. And then Billy brought it over to Rhode Island, and it was like she had died and gone to heaven. So,
and now we're going to go way back on this one: the Flume or the Rock and Roll Express.
So the Rock and Roll Express really was if you wanted your friends to throw up. If anyone who got on the Rock and Roll Express, there was not a lot of rocking and rolling. There was more just heaving and
well,
hurling.
We've alienated everyone that is not from Rhode Island. So let's get into it. And I got a question really quick, and it's funny. Rhode Island is such a small state, right? It takes us probably a quarter tank of gas, or we're actually redlining on E to get from the most northern part of the state to the southern part of the state.
Right.
So everybody knows everyone.
Right.
When you go out to dinner, you probably did help 6 people with the purchase of their new home. It is so important, I would say, in Rhode Island, about word of mouth. I mean, how do you maintain that? Because me, sometimes, in my back in the subprime days, I'd be petrified to go to dinner because somebody's no income, no asset, they'll blow up at the table because they realize a janitor can't make $180,000 a year. So right. How do you maintain that in those relationships? So, that word of mouth is so important because in Rhode Island, everybody knows a guy, right?
Yeah, you have to maintain an incredibly high level of integrity. And what I mean by that is not every deal works out, right? And not every deal happens. And you'd like for everyone to get a mortgage. It's just not the reality of the situation. But what you need to do, or what I try to do, is maintain a high level of communication, and also tell people why, right? In business, since Simon Sinek came on the scene, everyone's talking about their why and his why and my why. But very seldomly do people in our position tell the customer why rates are acting the way they are, why you don't qualify for this program, but maybe you qualify for that program.
Right.
You really need to kind of maintain, you almost find yourself being an educator as much as a salesperson, and especially in this climate where things are changing so drastically and everything seems to be so competitive. You really need to kind of wear a bunch of different hats and try to wear them as well as you can, because like you said, you're going to see those people at the pickup line for daycare or at the restaurant when you go to the restaurant down the street. So you're going to run into these people over and over again. It's not like we live in a metropolitan area. So when you maintain a high level of integrity, your customer knows that you did your best for them, regardless of the outcome. I think that's important.
No, good point. Good point. I think you said relationships, which is, critical, especially in Rhode Island. You said something on a show with Kyle Sievert, if I said his name right, and you had said that it's good to know all parties, right? The realtor, right, the title company, the LO, the lender, et cetera. Because even Kyle said, if it's a certain lender or a certain title company, I'll shy away from that offer.
Yeah.
So,
no, so right now in Rhode Island, and I know this is nationals, but I'm in Rhode Island. I'm licensed in a bunch of different states, but live in Rhode Island. There are 10 times as many real estate agents as there are houses on the market. So there are 600 houses on the market, 6 and change, and there are over 6,000 real estate agents. So I'm really going on a road tour right now to all the different brokerages, and I'm talking about you got to know your customer. And you have to have a plan for that customer. It can't be enough to ring someone's doorbell and be like, I'm going to get you, more money than you thought, because everyone's doing that. You actually have to come to the table and say, not only am I going to get you more money than you thought, here's the plan for where you're going to move, and here's how we're going to get you there. Because right now, that's the uncertainty that is the biggest objection for folks listing their houses. My house is going to sell really quickly. Where am I going to go from there? So you have to know your customer, whether that is the consumer on the street, or if you're in relationships or referral partnerships with your realtors, your insurance agents, your attorneys. And you have to we're at a time now in the industry where you're going to have a come to Jesus moment where you say, hey, what does everyone bring to the table? If you're bringing value to your partners and there's no value coming back, you're going to have to rethink those partnerships. And if you're the one not bringing value, I think your partners are already rethinking their relationships with you,
Right.
You said something great there. Ken, you'll attest to this. At EPMX, the number one question from loan officers to the realtors were, how do I get you to do business with me? And every time I see you, I'd say 50% of the time, you're always with a realtor partner. How do you get those relationships? Because that's the number one question everyone wants to know. And you've done a great job with it.
Sure, I appreciate that, and I think the thing that I do that maybe not everyone does is I'm not the right fit for everyone, and everyone is not the right fit for me, right? So I think of it, and my wife's in the other room. I think of it almost like dating, right? You're going to meet a lot of people. You're going to be maybe attracted to people in a business sense, where you're saying, oh, those people do the same kind. This realtor does the same kind of business I do, in the same kind of price point, and they're dealing with the same kind of people that use the mortgages that I'm really adept at showing. But that's not always going to be a fit personality wise, business wise. And so the more people you meet, the more you can kind of say, all right, I link up with this person, not so much with this person. And you also have to say, all right, what am I bringing to the table? So when I meet with someone, first of all, I do a deep dive on their business. What are they doing? I also do a deep dive on who they're working with, because there's some loan officers who are, and I know you're not going to believe this, as good as me or better than me. And I have to kind of let go of my ego and kind of know that. So I'm not going to try to compete with those loan officers. I'm going to compete with the loan officers who I know maybe I can do a better job than right off the bat. Or if I am head to head with some of the better loan officers, I'm going to know that I bring something different to the table, or I bring something that's going to help my partner, my potential partner's business, take them to the next level. So I'm really thinking before the meeting, how is this meeting going to go? What am I going to offer as far as my value add proposition? And then from there, it really is personality, the level of integrity, because believe it or not, there's some people in the real estate industry who are not on the level. And then also, really, I can tell from sitting across the table from someone how interested they are in working. Believe it or not, there are a lot of people who say, all right, we're going to do this and this and this, and their eyes glaze over and they're like, oh, well, usually I get my business from like going to networking parties. And that's not a scalable business plan. If you said, oh, I would go to networking parties and then I target 3 people and then I do belly to bellies with them, belly to bellies is a meeting. And then from there we implement, that's a scalable business model. But if you just wander around at cocktail parties hoping you get business, that's not a business I want to be in. Right. And I think more loan officers should have respect for their own time, their own business, and just say, all right, here's what I bring to the table. I'm going to just lead with that. And then let's see what they're going to, what the response is.
You did something really cool, Kenny. You weren't there. We call it a board meeting every Friday with a group of friends that all from different industries, and we share thoughts and ideas. And a couple weeks ago, in one of these board meetings, you were there with a realtor. I don't know. He had to be 22 years old.
He was young.
I heard your conversation with him was really teaching him and nurturing him and embracing him on what's to come and what he needs to do. And I thought that was really cool that you took the time out for this young guy. You're not a real estate agent. You've been around the real estate business. You know what you're talking about. But you really coached him up. And I was sitting there, I was listening in one ear to my conversation over here in the board meeting, and one ear listening to you having this conversation with him. And that is something I wish more people would do, is embrace the younger people, train them up, help them grow, because they'll remember TJ Curran. That guy will remember you when he's doing 50 deals a month.
Right.
No, and I agree. And I think here's the thing: knowing what you know, and being in a place where you're really coming from a really sincere way of, I want to help you. Because there are people in my position who are like, this is the way it gets done, and you should do it this way. And my way is the right way, or the highway. With that guy, Rob Silva from Century 21, he came and we met, and I didn't know that when I didn't know the board meeting was actually going to start that early. My plan was to talk to this kid, send him on his way, and hang out with you guys. But the cool thing was, you guys showed up a little bit early, and I actually leaned into the kid and I said, these men are all really successful business people. We can learn more from listening to what they say, and we can talk about what we were going to talk about another time, and also being adaptable as well. So not only are we saying, all right, here's what you can do to get your real estate business kickstarted, but let's introduce you to some other people who may be important to know in the state we're in, and also we can learn from them just from their business experience, right? So knowing where you are and knowing who you're with, and also adapting to what maybe you thought your meeting was going to be about, is also important in these meetings, I think.
Right, right. You know, you got a wealth of experience. You've closed hundreds of millions of dollars in, fundings. And you went from home advisor, right, back at home lending advisor to now coach, right? What was that transition? Right. What was the journey that wanted you to, beat the selflessness and say, I want to coach now and go from just LO to coach?
Yeah, it's funny because I've been, I don't want to say victim. I've experienced bad management, right? So I've been I'm an underling. I've been an underling or, for some of the worst managers ever. Almost like Horrible Bosses movie level management. And so I actually said, if I ever get to a point in my career where I could do this, I'm willing to coach people for free. And I'm willing to kind of just share what I know. And if it helps, it helps. We started it at Semper. I'm at Semper Home Loans. And I got to be honest with you. There's some guys who are like, no, I don't want to do this. One of the first activities is you figure out where your business comes from, your how much business you do, the number of units, and so your average price point, and then you set your goals based on that, right? So everything is measurable. You can measurable. It's all data driven, measurable. So you can, again, we're all looking to scale. That's the biggest thing we're trying to do. So, and one of the first exercises was plan your daily sales activities day by day. Your perfect week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Some of these guys were unwilling or unable to do that. So we're in an industry where there is a lot of uncoachable people. And then we're in an industry where there's a lot of people who are trying to reinvent the wheel every day and trying to make it up all on their own. Personally, what I've done is I've just taken best practices from people who are more successful than me, and I try to implement them. And I think having a coach to hold you accountable and having a coach to kind of maybe say, hey, here's a different way of looking at this is really, really helpful in any kind of sales, but especially in real estate and mortgage sales. And then the other thing that it does is if you're asking someone to do something, I come from a sports background. I know you can't tell from looking at me, I've gained about 40 pounds since then. But when you're telling someone to do something, hey, I want you to design the perfect week, unless I'm doing it myself, I feel like I shouldn't be teaching or coaching or so I'm doing all the things I'm asking my the guys I coach to do, guys and gals I coach to do. And it's making me a better loan officer. It's made me a better loan officer by coaching others.
Right.
You said something, again, it's funny, right? Jamie Kavanaugh said the same thing last week. I heard Phil Brousseau say it 2 weeks earlier. Sometimes people have that bad leader that was worse bosses type story, right? And you could be bitter about that, or you could take things that they did and say, I'll never do this. I'm going to be a better leader. So sometimes those people are just as valuable in making you a better leader, a better coach, a better, producer, whatever it is, by taking what they did and say, I'm never going to do that. I'm going to learn from what they did wrong. And the other thing you brought up, and I keep hearing this all the time too, and I love saying it. I'll never ask anyone to do anything I'm not willing to do or I can't do.
Right.
So that is why I still love, even as the chief lending officer, when there's an issue, get on the phone with the loan officer. I want to be able to help him through that problem the same way I expect one of my account executives. So that's a really great share for anyone that's listening. Don't be bitter about that bad boss in your history. Learn from them what not to do and be a better leader, be a better coach. So, you shared that's 3 people in a row, Kenny, if you notice, that are all great at their jobs that all said the same thing. That was really cool to share.
No, great point.
I feel like anyone who's worked for a big bank, like a Citizens type depository bank, right? They seem to promote based on longevity and not based on merit. And so you get a lot of people who just kind of ran out the clock hoping to get a promotion in positions where maybe they shouldn't have been promoted or whatever. And maybe it's changed since I was in a bank, a depository bank, but that's been my experience. And that doesn't necessarily mean that person is the best suited to manage sales or to. Right. And manage is even a bad word, right? Because if you're managing, that means you're being reactive versus proactive. I prefer the term coaching because coaching happens before the game, right? And you coach inside the game, you coach a little bit too. After the game, not so much. But really, you want to focus on the skill set before the sale, before you get the loan, and really kind of have that person prepared for how they're going to deal with objections, how they're going to structure loans, how they're going to, sell, just basically sell, and if you can do that, if you can set the guys or girls you coach up to succeed in that way, then you don't have to really worry as much about the in-game stuff. You don't have to really worry about the post-game stuff, because it's all going to take care of itself, because the reps they got before they went out to sell are going to really prepare them for what they're going to see.
Oh, makes sense. So give us some of your coaching tips. So when you have like an LO that's struggling and you're coaching, what does TJ Curran do to get them out of that?
Well, it depends on what kind of, because in real estate is great because you can do it so many different ways, right? But if you're an on the phone guy, right, you're doing phone sales. What I would say is you got to make a connection with the person on the other side of that phone as quickly as possible. What does that mean, right? And like I said, I do my homework on the people I meet with. I do the homework on a lot of my clients. It's easy while you're on the phone with someone. Hey, Kevin Delory. You type in their name, you Google them, right? They come up. See, Kevin Delory likes golf. Like, hey, sun's coming out. You're going to hit the links later, right? Just that little thing, that little 5-minute connection, just based on some people may call it stalking. I call it doing research. But if you're on the phone with someone and you're doing cold calling, or maybe you're doing phone sales, you have to make a connection with that person, because then when their phone rings, they're going to want to talk to you because of the way you treated them. If you're transactional, even over the phone, so you figure phone sales, how can I get personal? I'm going to have to be transactional. That's not true. You need to be more relationship driven than the next guy, because you don't have that human connection. So find a way to make a connection with the person as quickly as possible. If you are a outside loan officer or a retail loan officer, what I would say is figure out what your value proposition is and lead with that every time and not expect anything back. Which is really hard for people to wrap their heads around, right? Because if I give you my best, I want something back. But what most people don't understand, and if you've read the Simon Sinek book, Leaders Eat Last, I think, people are hardwired in their lizard brain to reciprocate. So if you lead with whatever your value proposition is, and you just give it away now, like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, then you can. The people on the other end of that are hardwired to want to reciprocate. It's the reason why when people show up at Christmas, right? You have a Christmas party and people show up and you didn't think they were going to bring a gift, but they bring a gift. And you run around your house thinking, oh my gosh, I have to wrap something up and give it to them because they gave me something. That's your lizard brain saying, I need to reciprocate. Everyone can relate to that, right? So if across the table from someone and you're saying, hey, I can offer you this, and this is something I offer to my realtor partners, and their eyes are not lighting up, they're not your partner. They're not going to be a good partner for you. That's my down and dirty quick 2 tips for 2 different kinds of salespeople.
You said something there, and a lot of people get confused in this, and I see the great loan officers get this. This is a relationship-based business. I hear a lot of times, wholesale's relationship, retail's transactional. BS. If you want to be a top-notch AE, you want to be top-notch LO, it's all about relationships, because that person's going to introduce you to the next potential customer, and probably a friend, especially in Rhode Island, they become friends, family, and you become the guy. So that is I'm glad you said that, because a lot of times I'll hear loan officers say, well, it's different in wholesale than retail. It's transactional in retail. That is why you do 3 loans a month. And that is why TJ does 30 loans a month, because he looks at it as a relationship base and you're looking at it as a transaction. So that's some great advice.
No, absolutely. And he says something, TJ, something that hits home with us here at EPM is that you said not only do you keep the stress level low in your transactions, you also keep it fun. So that's what the referral base will come from as you keep the transaction fun.
I guess, why are we doing this if it's not fun? You know what I mean? And people buying a house should be one of the most joyous times ever. And don't get me wrong, there's going to be stress, and you're going to have stress. But here's the thing: if you're good at eating the stress that maybe your customers might have, and kind of not telling them, here's a difficult thing about being on the retail side, right? Most customers don't know when you did a great job. Most customers don't know when you do a seamless job, when you do something where they don't feel any anxiety or stress at all. Most of the time, because they buy a house every 10 years, every 7 years, they just think that's the way it's supposed to be. Now, it's not the way it is. And in almost every deal, there's some level of stress or some kind of, hiccup or monkey wrench. If you can take those on, right? If you can dive on that grenade for your customer, what I would say is maybe at the end, point out, hey, I just want you to know there are other people that have had more stressful, transactions. And if you know friends or family who would like to have the same lack of stress that you've had, why don't you refer them to me? It's a really, I wouldn't want to say point it out, a lot or whatever, but I would make sure that your customer knows they had a good experience, because a lot of times they're not going to know good or bad. They just, that's just me, I guess.
No, it's a good point. Right? If it goes seamless and there's no issues, right, that's normal.
Right.
But they don't realize that that's not normal for the industry.
Right.
You have to point that out to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's great. That's great. So you're not a job hopper. You've been in this business 20 years. You just moved over to Semper not too long ago. What makes you make that type of decision? What type of leadership do you follow? Or what type of, company do you look for a TJ Curran to make a move like that?
The big thing was that they were local. And I'm able to deal directly with the owners. I came from another company, Fairway, where the CEO, Steve Jacobson, amazing guy, but there was levels of management where they weren't. It's tough for a big operation for culture to trickle down, right? And so you have to get some of the culture involved, and I guess the more direct pipeline from the culture, from the C-suites, the better. And I know that that's an issue that a lot of mortgage companies, sales companies deal with as they get larger. They're growing pains, and sometimes the idea of culture doesn't trickle down from the founders or the leaders. With Semper, it's a national company. We have a national reach. We have a complete suite of tools and programs, but it is based in Rhode Island. The owners are from Rhode Island, and I have a direct line to them. So for my business and the way I see it, kind of developing over the next 20 years, which I think that'll be it for me, is basically this, like having a really good relationship, direct line with the ownership, and trying to build stuff locally that makes sense for me and my family and my partners, my real estate referral partners and my clients. And I think that's the best fit.
Yeah, and I think, and Kenny and I we definitely agree with this. It's culture. A lot of places is a word, right? And they have this idea, and they want to put it on the wall when you walk in, and this is what it is. Yeah. But it doesn't live, it doesn't breathe. And I broke bread with the owners of Semper. Kenny and I had lunch with them one day, and I can tell you they have culture. Not just with the amount of drinks they shared with us, but it was a good time. But they're genuine. Like we're fortunate enough. We have Eddie Perez at the helm here, and it isn't a word for him. He really believes in it, and those guys believe in it. And it's awesome to see that other people are being attracted to companies like that don't just have it when you walk in. It looks pretty on a business card or on the wall. It's living, breathing. That's awesome to see. But before we wrap up, Kenny, we want to share the best TJ isms, because Kenny came to my office the other day and gave me a TJ ism that I almost fell on the floor laughing. But
I don't know if that was a TJ-ism. I got to stand corrected. I heard it, but I don't know if this was original from you. It was the road to life is paved with smashed squirrels that were indecisive.
That was I did create that. Yeah, because I don't know. So you guys live kind of near me. There's a lot of suicidal squirrels in my neighborhood, always darting out in front of the cars. I have not hit any yet, but I've seen the aftermath of some some squirrels who were not as decisive as they should be. And so if Ted Lasso is saying be like a goldfish, right? I think TJ Curran saying don't be like a squirrel. Be decisive, make your move. Do not stay in the middle of the road and get hit. So
that's hilarious. That's your comedic value, right? You was a comedian at one time. So
I was. Yeah.
It shows.
That's great. I mean, we want to wrap it up with this. This podcast is all about how you define your value, and you shared a lot of that with us today. But what is the one thing you want everyone to know about TJ and how you define your value in this industry?
Well, I think if you talk about Simon Sinek and the Golden Circle, right? Like I am a father, husband, and coach. And, I really pride myself on making the American dream of home ownership available to as many people as possible. And that's my golden circle, and that, or my golden triangle, or my, whatever you call it. And that's my why. It's really building something for my son and my wife and my family, and helping as many families as I can achieve a level of happiness that hopefully we're on the road to achieving. And it is a road. Seems like it's a never-ending road, but I think having the journey be as fun or as memorable as where you think you're going is part of it. So that's me.
That's awesome. And I would tell anyone that's listening to this podcast that this isn't mouth music from TJ. This is really who he is. This 100% open book. Everything he said, I've seen, I've heard, I witnessed. It isn't something he says to get this next loan. It's just who he is, and that's what makes him such a in the short period of time. Played golf with him once. Next thing you know, we're chatting all the time. I'll see him next week at the Masters. I mean, it's just it's been a great relationship. Shared a drink on my birthday. Yes, and I got surprised by Kenny at a surprise party with the return of the Mac. It was great. Unfortunately,
I won't give you the birthday year, but yeah, it was big. It was a big number.
TJ, thanks for everything. And I want to thank everyone for listening to the whole Perspective podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to continue the conversation, head over to Broker Success Community Facebook group. You can also find us on LinkedIn at EPM Broker Success, or on Instagram at EPM Broker. Thanks again. We'll see you guys all next time. One last thing that I will challenge you, TJ, to do is to reach out to Jamie Kavanaugh. You guys share a lot in common. And I think you guys can all learn from something. There's one thing I'd like to get from this podcast, and that is the people that are on here so knowledgeable to share that with each other, just like at EPMX. I know you try to attend, TJ, and it was weird for me to share all of this knowledge and not get anything in return, and not be able to approach TJ Curran and say, "Do you have a loan for me?" But I learned a lot from it, and I learned a lot about our board meetings and having a mastermind. So I would challenge you to, I'm going to send you Jamie's information.
That'd be great. Yeah.
I'd love you guys connect. I'd love to hear what your feedback is of each other, of, connecting and what you learned about each other. Kenny, anything to add in closing, or TJ?
No, I agree with you. You know what? It's not about competition. The coaching, the educating, the sharing. It's critical in our industry. If you're the best version of yourself, as Eddie says, there's really no competitor out there. So I appreciate all you shared with us today, TJ. You're a friend and a true professional. So thanks for being on the podcast with us, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone out there that's listening and watching. I really appreciate you taking the time. If you have any questions for me, please reach out. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.